A common question that I get is how many items should I be listing per day and how big should my store size actually be? Everyone's situation and scenario is completely different from the next, so I'm going to talk about 3 different scenarios and situations on what type of store I would build and what I think you guys should build if you are in that situation. Keep in mind, you will not be exactly one of these 3 situations, so you're going to have to mold your store a little bit, but these are 3 basic pillars that if I was in these situations, this is what I would do. All right, the first situation I'm going to call the pretty darn good situation, which is the situation that I am currently in. This means that you have maybe a whole basement where you can store your inventory. Maybe you have a 2-car garage like I do that you can dedicate completely toward your business, and you also have a place for a dedicated listing station and a desk where you can do the majority of your business from. In this pretty darn good situation, I would recommend having a store size between 3,000 and 5,000 items that you will be able to comfortably fit in your situation. What I would do with those items is I would focus on quality items. What that means is I want to get as many items as I can without sacrificing quality. So what I mean by quality is we can measure that on a simple metric called sell-through rate, STR. You guys know I talk about this all the time. Now let me very briefly explain to you how I calculate sell-through rate. A ton of people have different ways of calculating sell-through rate, and if you already have a mode that works for you, you can go ahead and continue to use that one. This is something that is controversial and people get stuck in the weeds about, but it really doesn't matter. If you just calculate it a different way, you can totally continue to do so. The way that I calculate sell-through rate is on a 1-to-1 ratio on a 90-day basis. For example, if 100 items are listed and 100 have sold in the last 90 days, that's a 100% 90-day sell-through rate, which means if there are 100 listed and 0 additional items get listed, 100% of those items, according to previous data, will be sold in 90 days. Now, it's not always perfect, but that's generally how things go. If I have 200 listed and 100 sold, that's a 50% 90-day sell-through rate, so on and so forth. So in this pretty darn good situation, let's say you want to get to 3,000 active items. Awesome store. I would recommend doing this on a 75% sell-through rate. To have a store at 3,000 items at a 75% sell-through rate does not mean you're only picking up items that have a 75% sell-through rate. What you're doing is you're focusing on the fastest sell-through rate items possible, which means you're going to pick up a ton of items that have a 200% sell-through rate or a 300% sell-through rate. But that also means that you're going to dip below 75% and pick up items that have a 50% sell-through rate or a 60% sell-through rate or a 70% sell-through rate. In this perfect scenario, in this great scenario situation, I don't recommend dipping below 50%. All right, so the math behind this store is if you have 3,000 active items that sell at a 75% 90-day sell-through rate, that means you will sell 25 items per day on average. In order to maintain that store, you would need to list 25 items per day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year. I definitely do not recommend sourcing and listing 7 days a week. I recommend doing it 5, maybe 6 days per week if that's what you truly want to do. So we need 25 items per day, but we're not sourcing and listing every single day. So we need 175 items per week. I would take 175 and I would divide that by either 6 if you want to source 6 days a week or 5 if you want to source 5 days a week. If you are sourcing 5 days per week, that means you need to find 35 items per day. And if you're sourcing 6 days per week, you need to get like 29.6. So we'll say 30 items per day. The numbers are exactly the same. If you're listing 5 times a week, then you're going to draft 35. And if you're listing 6 times per week, then you're going to draft 30. This is where the draft bank becomes very important because you can keep this business moving seamlessly. So if you want to list 175 items per week in this great scenario, I would recommend finding 35 items per day and drafting 35 items per day. And then every morning you can wake up and launch 25 of them, or you can schedule to have 25 of them go live every single day of the year, every Sunday, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every anniversary, every kid's birthday. You're able to keep this steam engine moving forward. So now you have to figure out how are you going to get 25 items a day every single day, or 35 5 times a week and 36 times a week. I would definitely recommend trying to get 25 Monday through Friday, and then trying to get as much as you can on Saturday, or if you live in a place that has flea markets on Sunday, trying to get as many items as you can on that Saturday and Sunday to build that inventory. So you don't have to get 75% sell-through rate items in this scenario. You can get 10 that have a 50% sell-through rate, 10 that have a 75% sell-through rate, and then 5 that have a 100% or above sell-through rate. If it's exactly 1%, 100%, then you're going to be at like 73% sell-through rate, which is fine. If your 5 items that have extremely fast sell-through rate end up having like 140 or 200 or even 300% sell-through rate, then you're going to be slightly above that 75%. So basically, in this perfect scenario that I'm talking about, you're looking for 10 items that have a 50% sell-through rate, 10 items that have a 75% sell-through rate, and 5 items that have a 100% plus sell-through rate. But even better, if you can just find 25 items that have a floor of 75 and up, then you're going to have an even better store and better work-life balance. Scenario number 2, space is not an issue. Maybe you have a barn in your backyard, or you have a shed, or you have the money to go get some storage containers, or you have a storage unit. If space isn't an issue, then what I would do is I would shoot for a 10,000 item store with a 50% sell-through rate. And I wouldn't rush to get there. You're going to get there eventually, because if you're listing an average of 50% sell-through rate items, then you're going to be listing considerably more than you're selling, and your store will grow over time to 2,000, 5,000, 7,000, 10,000. Now, this is where people can really fall into a trap, because they have so much space. They forget about the 50% sell-through rate, and they're like, I've got the space for it, and it's cheap or even free. I'm just going to grab it. Even if items are free, I would still definitely look up the sell-through rates and reject some of them. For example, I sell a lot of remote controls, and I come across a lot of remote controls that have about a 50% sell-through rate. There's like 24 listed, 11 to 15 sold, right in that 50% range, so it's awesome. If I was in this scenario where space isn't an issue and I wanted to grow my store even bigger, then I would also get remotes that only have 16 listed and like 5 sells. That's getting really, really low for me, and I want to avoid those as much as possible. But if I'm intending to grow a store, then that's okay too. But I find remotes all the time that have 13 listed, 0 sold. Do not buy those. Don't put those in your store. They may sell eventually, but that's going to hurt your metrics, and it's just going to lead to a headache over time. Even if they're free, leave those remotes behind. Even if they're free, leave those cassettes behind. Even if they're free, leave those salt and pepper shakers behind. Even if they're free, leave that shirt behind. Yes, there is a counter argument to this, because you can lot these items up. If you get, 85 country cassettes that have a awful sell-through rate on their own, but as a lot of 85 country cassettes, you will be able to sell those items. Yes, I'll talk about that in another video. That is another strategy, but this can also lead to frustration as well. So be mindful of that. And let's just keep rolling. Now, like I said earlier, it's going to take much longer to build this store, and you need to stay disciplined, or else things aren't going to work out properly, and you're actually going to end up getting a 14,000, 17,000, 21,000 item store that actually is around a 20% sell-through rate. Now you have a ton of overhead issues and things like that. I definitely want you to stay as close to that 50% or even higher if it's available in your area. Stay by that 50% sell-through rate. So I recommend, if you are completely starting from 0, then I would recommend finding 20 items that have a 50% sell-through rate on average, and keep listing those until you start selling 12 or 13 per day. Once you're at 12 or 13 per day, go to 30, go to 40, go to 50, go to 60, go to 70. Eventually, if you want to have a 10,000 item store with a 50% sell-through rate, obviously that is difficult. So that's why I recommend building slower and working towards 10,000. Because if you start listing 111 items a day every single day, especially as a beginner, you're going to be sacrificing that 50% sell-through rate. It's extremely difficult to list 110 items every day that have a 50% sell-through rate. So especially in the beginning, just to get to your 110 items, you're going to be picking up things that have a 5% sell-through rate, a 15% sell-through rate, and it's just not going to work out. And in this last scenario, you have very minimal to only a little bit amount of space. So I'm going to do a little bit broader here. Maybe you live in an apartment that is only a 1-bedroom apartment. You don't have a storage unit. You don't even have a closet. Or you live in a situation where you have 1 spare bedroom or smaller that you can store your inventory in. In this scenario, I would recommend having above a 100% 90-day sell-through rate. Many of you may believe that that is improbable and even impossible, but if you check out my live streams or my Facebook page, people are constantly posting and saying, I have 45 active items and I've sold over 150 in the last 90 days. Or people say that they have 150 listed and 220 sold. They're having these above 100% sell-through rate stores, which is awesome. And you can definitely fit a ton of items. I say this all the time, you can fit 100 articles of clothing in a closet. You can fit 500 basketball cards in a drawer, and you can fit 200 video games underneath a bed. If you're in these situations, you need to focus on extremely fast sell-through rate items. You could stay at this point forever. Just keep picking up 1 to 10 items per day that have over a 100% sell-through rate and have the good problem of not being able to grow. But I want to talk to the people who actually want to grow in this situation. So let's say that you're an absolute beginner and you have little to no space. Now you've sold 300 items over the last 90 days and you only have 120 listed. And sometimes your store grows and sometimes your store shrinks because you're just not able to get enough product. At this point, now I would transition into the pretty darn good situation where you have more space and you're getting a store to 3,000 to 5,000 items. Now, cash flow. Make as much money as you can, and then once you're ready, now you can get a storage unit that's close to your location. At this point, what you're going to do is you're going to list all of your items, and you're going to keep all of the ones that have a 100% sell-through rate in your house where you're already listing them. And then you're going to start hunting for the 75% sell-through rate items. So anything that has a 5 to a 75% sell-through rate, you're going to list and take to your storage unit. That's where you're actually going to be able to start building an inventory. Everything that has above that, and everything that has less than a 100% sell-through rate goes in your storage unit. Everything that has over a 100% sell-through rate stays in your house. You're able to list and ship these items that sell very quickly, and then you're able to build your inventory over time in your storage unit. Then you're going to get to a point where you need to expand from that, so you can get another storage unit, or you can get a warehouse, and then you can go from the small to the pretty darn good situation. And then from there, you can really choose where you want to go. In this small space situation, you're not going to have a daily listing goal. You're not going to try to list 3 every single day, or 7 every single day, or 11 every single day. You're going to list all of the items that you get that have over a 100% sell-through rate. You don't need to build a draft bank here. You don't need to do any of that. All you're doing is you're finding the fastest sell-through rate items possible, and you're listing them. If you find 11 on Monday, then list all 11 of them. If you only find 3 on Tuesday, then list all 3 of them. Only list these extremely fast sell-through rate items. What you're going to do is you're going to be able to build a bankroll. You're going to put your money aside so you can start to get your storage unit. Then once you have your storage unit in place, now you can start picking the items that have an average of a 75% sell-through rate or faster. Now here's some advice for all resellers. All 3 situations and all of the situations beyond that, except for the guys that truly, truly, truly want to build to have a 500,000 item store. Those stores exist. They're pretty rare, and they are not watching YouTube videos. Okay. I have a friend that has a 285,000 item store. I've talked about him before. He does exclusively Lego pieces. And then I have some others that have over a $100,000 item store. I recommend that all resellers focus on 2 key metrics. The first metric, which is more important, is sell-through rate and quality of items. You want to make sure that you are sticking to your 75% sell-through rate or your 50% sell-through rate or your 100 plus sell-through rate, whichever category that you fall into. The second metric is to list consistently. But right now in YouTube land and Facebook and Reddit, it is very popular to focus on a model which is list the exact same amount of items every single day and then slowly start to build on those items over time. I do agree with that philosophy. I think that the consistency in the listing the same amount of items every single day is only going to lead to success when you don't sacrifice sell-through rate. Unfortunately, though, people focus on the store size and not the sell-through rate. Again, I think it is much better to focus on your 75% sell-through rate and list less items than it is to focus on your store size and how many items you're listing and sacrifice the sell-through rate. Again, sacrifice items listed, don't sacrifice sell-through rate. It is best to list 75% sell-through rate items every single day. But if you can't do that, it is better to list 7 and 19 and 25 and 25 and 25 and 13 and 9 than it is at a 75% sell-through rate than it is to list 25 every single day at a 35% sell-through rate. And you'll be shocked as you try to reach that number how quickly your sell-through rate number drops, because you're just picking up items to put in your store instead of picking up items to sell to your customers.